Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our interview today. My name is Dr. Ryan. I'm a retired professor, spent 40 years in academia in the States, and I will be interviewing my colleague, Steve Poulos in Toronto, who is the CEO of a major state-of-the-art energy technology company referred to as Global Warming Prevention Technologies in Toronto, and we work together through a think tank associated with the company called the International Center for Strategic Innovation. On that note, I'd ask Steve to take over, if he would, and address his primary issue here of the subsidy possibilities on geothermal energy system development.
Thank you, Dr. I'd first like to preface by thanking you for this admirable quest to incorporate the education system with known sciences, emerging sciences, and new sciences, together with the political realm, to bring together the opportunity of uniting in a holistic way the quest to discover solutions to climate change and to the various challenges that we have to deter the risks that we're entering into in this century and beyond. My interest, as you mentioned, was to open by discussing the great opportunity that the province of Ontario has right now to develop geothermal systems in a way that takes advantage of the oversupply of energy that the province is producing, both in terms of nuclear energy and gas-powered and hydroelectric energy, and move the opportunity closer to renewables, which is where you have to go if you want to reduce fossil fuel and the carbon footprint overall in Canada or any nation. So right now, because this oversupply of energy creates a dumping of energy to our neighboring states and provinces to the tune of about a quarter of the value of the energy. So we're paying 8.5 cents a base price now in Ontario during off hours, and they're dumping energy to the US or to neighboring states at 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So there's this huge amount of energy just being given away, where at the same time we have a renewable system, a geothermal system that captures and stores energy during the different season and recovers it when you require the opposite form, either heating or cooling. So we have an opportunity to bring politics and energy conservation together and deliver a new capacity in renewables, because ultimately geothermal, since it's so efficient in storing and recapturing energy, it only requires 1/4 of the energy of a typical, for instance, an air conditioner in the summer. In the city, we had brownouts back when we didn't have enough electricity. If we had a capacity built that was evaluated to be a rational capacity by deeming a subsidy to geothermal energy providers, we could build a new capacity over time and strategically not be in a position years from now where we have pure fossil fuel production for electricity, delivering air conditioning to the city. And in the winter, it's just as efficient. It's 4 times more efficient to use a geothermal system than it is either electric system or even a gas system. It's 4 times more efficient. However, the prices of gas per gigajoule of energy is a quarter of the amount for electrical energy. So it's an unfair competition in the winter to compete with fossil fuels. So therefore, I've made deliberations to our energy minister, as well as copies to, as you've mentioned, Trudeau is now looking at new ways to move forward. But Bob Chiarelli is now looking at this opportunity to open the discussions and perhaps a steering committee to look at developing new ways of opening this renewable technology. And it could be a major plus for the province right away to deal with the carbon footprints and ultimately the cap and trade system that Kathleen Wynne has introduced. As you know, Quebec and Ontario now looking at cap and trade. Quebec has already begun their cap and trade process. More and more states and provinces are coming on stream to evaluate how we can improve the overall carbon footprint in Canada. So that's one initiative that IC has taken into an inaugural point together with GWPT, Global Warming Prevention Technologies, and I look forward to further meetings with all of the stakeholders of that industry. My personal interest and stakeholdings in this is not as a technology owner of geothermal systems. It's a very old and very capable and durable system. It's more in the realm of looking at new infrastructure for environmental land development. Because I'm interested and I'm working in the field of environmental land development, I'm an architectural designer, and I'm working with my mentor, Julian Jacobs, architect, to deliver presently up to 80 home units and small green communities that have these type of systems in place. And if there is an incentive given by the government to deliver these instead of utilizing typical gas furnaces and typical HVAC systems, we can begin to make a dent at the overall carbon footprint that we're looking to reduce. Now, globally, we have an issue that is making decisions about a path forward. So the present path is making decisions on what temperature we want to arrive at in terms of a rise over pre-industrial ages. Do we want to limit it to 3 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100? Well, if we continue at the path that we're doing now, we will very clearly reach over 1,500 parts per million of CO2 in the air by 2100, as well as over an 8-degree rise in global temperatures, which will undoubtedly result in even more greater catastrophes that we're looking at. We probably will have massive deforestation to the limit of 0 trees left. Right now we have approximately 3 trillion trees on the planet and losing 10 billion a year to deforestation. And that's the result of planting 5 billion but cutting 15 billion or removing 15 billion annually. So we'll be out of trees, and our temperature will be 8 degrees warmer in a mere 85 years. So it's a valid enterprise, and we commend the new Prime Minister and all of our new MPs in the ministries of the federal government to look very carefully at ways, especially when there's low-hanging fruit like this. So this is an interesting initiative to endeavor and to get all the stakeholders in tune and playing the same tune. So we have the various ministries of energy and environment. We have the various stakeholders, which is the providers of these systems, ground heat systems, otherwise known as geothermal systems. We have the financial industry that can participate in providing funding for these systems. So it's a full triple bottom line opportunity politically and environmentally. So that's the way I would open in terms of kind of level of interest, and getting kids or university students involved in initiatives like this, in pushing these initiatives to increase our chances of reducing what's called anthropogenic forces of carbon on our planet, we would have some great results. In North America and throughout the world, there is a polarization between various parties, not necessarily political parties, but a mindset which requires work by those that know that these forces are real, that temperatures are rising, that ice caps are diminishing, and that the sea and the earth is changing because of our impact, human impact. However, it's not to the advantage of the individuals that think that if we focus our attention on this, it's going to cost us more, it's going to lead to more bureaucracy, and it's going to destabilize various economies because we're not focusing on the immediate real needs. And what I say to groups like that is that to really focus on, look at what they really want, and that is to really have an environment which is clean and free of pollution. There's no need for a life in disharmony where people are dying prematurely. The US has several hundred coal plants dumping on Canada. There are technologies to remediate these issues, but it's important to get individuals who are not following the climate change issue to think about how their society can be better, not focusing on any tax increases or bureaucracies, but really how to make their own home and environment better. And I think most people would agree that they want to do that. It's just that they think that the bureaucratic process is overwhelming and therefore they don't support it. There's an overwhelming number of people in the US in particular that will not come on side to cap and trade policies or any kind of incentives to renewables because of their apprehension of being kind of over-regulated. But it doesn't have to be that. It's important that the political realms understand that that exists so that we can reduce the bureaucracies, so that we can alleviate these concerns that parties who could help fund and participate in climate action wouldn't be so apprehensive to do so. So there's work both kind of on a mental realm and as well on, clearly improving the sciences and making technologies available. And of course, geothermal is only one of many technologies that will alleviate these fossil fuel pressures on us. And I should add that why geothermal is requiring a subsidy is that it requires pumping of conductive fluids in the ground. It requires drilling and then pumping of fluids, continuous pumping of fluids that are transferring energy from the ground, either heat energy from the ground to the house or heat energy from the house to the ground, depending on the season. So if it can be very efficient once that pump is running to the tune of 4 times efficient, it's a valid exercise to look at making that electricity cheap to deliver that pumped product, which is free, sitting in the ground, stored and then recovered. The product that I've been working on for years is another renewable, but it's a system where you recover energies from waste. So a lot of carbon and energy is stored in our manufactured products and ultimately our waste products, and those products are well known to be recoverable over the years. We've just developed a micro system at a certain scale, 170 kilowatt scale, 4 tons per day of biomass, or solid waste, or hazardous waste. And this is somewhat of a well-known process, but we've added a particular methodology to make it easily accessible and deliverable to either a small community or a resort to handle either available wastes or biomass to be recovered in the form of energy and heat or electricity. And we're working with very large groups out of Europe, in particular in Austria, who have very large capacities to deliver systems of well over 1,000 tons per day. And these systems are absolutely necessary as a keystone to looking at cap and trade systems, because as you mentioned earlier, we do save approximately 2 tons of CO2 for every ton of waste processed through a thermal process. Not only because you're getting energy out of it, but you're saving transportation energies for waste, and you're saving in particular the methane emissions coming from landfills, which are, as many people know, 21 times the effect in terms of the density of the same gas is 21 times a greenhouse gas force. So if we can stop the methane coming from landfill due to the waste deposition there, we could limit a great deal. Approximately about 1/20th of the globe's greenhouse gas forces are the result of landfill and waste emissions. It's a huge toxin that as well has greenhouse gas forces, and toxins are in terms of what's going into the ground. It's 100% pollution. So we'll talk in our second part about the details of these initiatives. But there are, again, many technologies aside from the known wind and solar systems. There are many opportunities to bring in renewables to alleviate these concerns.